What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this gorgeous red cedar coat rack from a log. So let's get started. So I am going to be starting off this project doing something pretty controversial, I think, in the comments section. I'm going to be running this thing through my planer, and I'm thinking it's going to work, but the other side is pretty rough. It's still in the log form, but luckily we do have this nice flat side from the chainsaw. So I just finished planing down our slab, and I didn't show too much of that just because it was really repetitive and boring. But now what we're going to do is let it sit in front of the wood stove for a while and dry, and hopefully now that it's only 1.5 inches thick, it'll dry pretty fast. So while we've got this thing drying by the wood stove, I've covered the end in Titebond 3, and that's just going to help slow down the drying through the end grain, which is going to help prevent some of that checking that we've already got going on. So I let the slab dry for 2 weeks in front of the wood stove. I just ran it through my planer a couple more times just to get it flat because it was cupped pretty bad from the wood stove. Now we're going to get the sander and start sanding this thing down, and I'm going to take very careful precautions to make sure that I don't touch any of this bark. I want to keep that bark intact for the final piece. And we'll just stick some armor seal on it. So I sanded it up to about 400 grit with my random orbit sander, hoping that I could get a really nice finish with my armor seal. And I think that's what we're going to get. Big thanks to General Finishes for sending me the armor seal used in this week's video. I think it's going to look gorgeous. So right now I've got about 4 coats of armor seal on our red cedar. Now what we're going to use is micro mesh to sand the second to last layer. Then we'll put our last layer on, and I'm hoping that this is going to make our last layer very smooth. So now I'm going to let that dry for 48 hours before we put the hooks on, just to make sure that that finish is fully dry. So guys, I've been using micro mesh and more armor seal to get this thing up to a really smooth finish. Now what we're going to do is attach the hooks on the back, and then we'll put the handles on the front. So right now I'm just kind of laying out the positioning on my hooks. I'm going 1.5 inches in from the end. I'm also making sure that this side right here is perfectly perpendicular with the end of my cedar. So what I've done is I've clamped this scrap piece of wood to my my red cedar here. I butted it up against the bottom of this one that we've already screwed in, and then I got it square over here using a tri-square. So now that we know that it's perfectly straight, we can line up the rest of our hooks on that board, and we know they're going to be in the same plane as this one. So now all I have to do is measure 1.5 inches in, like the one on the other end, and that right there is where I need to screw that one in. And now I can just center the last one between these two. So I've laid out a big black line on the back, which is perfectly parallel with our hooks on the front. Now what I'm going to do is use some little keyhole mounting systems. I'm going to put them on the back. I'm not going to show that really. I have a separate video explaining how to do that. I'll put a card right up here if you want to watch that. The link will be in the description down below. But I highly encourage you to watch that video if you want to learn more about doing flush mount to the wall. So I've laid out a big black line on the back of our red cedar that is perfectly parallel to our hooks on the front. Now I'm going to use some of these keyhole hangers here, put them on the back. I'm not really going to show how to do that. I have a separate video explaining everything about that. I'll put the card right up here, and the link will be in the description down below to that video. It's a really good way of doing it. I highly encourage you to watch that video. But in a nutshell, we're going to be putting 2 of these little keyhole hangers, one on each end, probably about 1.5 inches from the actual end of the red cedar. So guys, I think this project turned out absolutely amazing. I think the hooks are very, very proportional to the actual size of the red cedar. I also love the hooks that I picked out from Home Depot. I love the finish that they have on them. It's kind of like a gray with like a rubbed bronze look. And like I said, I got them at Home Depot. I think they were about $6 a piece, so not very bad. And overall, the project turned out really good. Guys, if you're not following me on Instagram yet, please be sure to follow me on Instagram. I'll stick the name up on the screen there. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff and stuff you don't see on the YouTube channel over on my Instagram, so be sure to follow me on Instagram. Guys, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel right now and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my future uploads. There's a lot of really good content coming up that you guys are not going to want to miss. And this piece is actually available. I didn't make it for any particular customer or anything. So if you're interested in it, hit me up on Instagram or type something down in the comments section and we can figure it out. Guys, thank you so much for watching this week's video. I'll be back next week with another awesome project video.